I've trained the Steve Amiibo.
It scares me.
The devs went out of their way to make sure Steve could use the same basic mechanics that a human could. For Steve, there's 3 things you've got to know. But if you haven't seen our Expert Amiibo guide, you need to see that first. This video assumes you already know the info in that guide. After we cover these 3 things, we'll explain what to focus on when training the Steve Amiibo. The Steve Amiibo AI is wildly different from other Amiibo in how it handles its moves, specifically mining, crafting, and blocks, and it's not completely clear how it operates under the hood. I consulted Lily Lambda, a competitive Steve Amiibo trainer, to see if our different methods could clear things up. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna never teach him to build. I'm never gonna mine. I'm never gonna craft. I was training him with wooden swords the whole time. It was really stupid looking. And my Steve, he doesn't use blocks. Like at all. Occasionally he'll extend an up air combo with them, but otherwise he just doesn't do blocks.
Mine, I specifically trained him to use blocks. But I tried to make sure I mined and crafted and used blocks pretty evenly. But as I said earlier, he just prioritizes blocks. He just doesn't craft much at all. He will stay on wood and not care one bit.
You'll notice we have one result in common between both of our approaches. Steve will still mine and craft, regardless of whether you train with neutral special or not. Under my approach, he seems to actually craft strategically, but I truly have no idea why. More research will be required, so check AmiiboDoctor.com for future Steve Amiibo posts. As best as I can tell, it's more competitively viable to not train with blocks because you'll have unfettered access to Steve's mining and crafting routines without risking running out of resources. Raid bosses are a different story, but they'll be in an upcoming video as well. The AI itself seems to be pretty smart about when it should Minecraft. It typically doesn't mine until it has some distance between it and the opponent, and it only crafts once it can upgrade its tools, or when one is getting close to breaking. At least that's with my method. Like with the Joker Amiibo, Nintendo has gone out of their way to program Steve to do human-like combos. Thank you, Sakurai. Joker had up air drag downs and chains and the like. Steve, similarly, has up tilt to up air and up air chains as well, even using a block placing CPU subroutine to extend them from time to time. He'll perform these combos whether you train him to or not, but they become more likely if you train him to use the moves within the combo itself. Unfortunately, Steve doesn't have fancy chains or zero deaths using his sword. As best as Lily and I can tell, the Steve Amiibo doesn't do a lot of shenanigans with his jabs. He's got a few follow-ups here and there, but nothing that'll be clip-worthy. Of course, Nintendo has a habit of patching Amiibo AI shortly after their official launch, so this may change in the future. There's a few minor combos and follow-ups in the AI, especially out of down tilt, but the 2 you need to know are up tilt combos yes and sword combos no. Anything extra I find will go on the website. Small note. Amiibo cannot learn advanced tech or combos. I know Steve's got a lot of fancy stuff going on, but at this juncture the Amiibo doesn't learn zero deaths, infinites, or the unintended tech that human players use in tournaments. Amiibo AI can only use the AI behaviors that Nintendo puts in their toolkit, and we just change the probability of the behaviors that it uses. Here's the thing. I trained my Steve to use loads of Minecart. I specifically focused on Minecart for about 20 levels straight. On normal tournament legal stages, he uses it maybe once or twice a match, but only to recover. But on small battlefield and Omega stages, he triples his usage of it, and even uses it as an attack on stage. This isn't a resource thing. He always keeps stocked with iron because he never spends it on blocks. Now, Amiibo have different data for on-stage attacks than off-stage recoveries and edgeguards, so if my observations are accurate, this means that there's a noticeably different AI for Steve depending on the stage he's on. I'm not 100% certain on this, but it would make sense. Steve is the only character in the game whose moveset is directly affected by the stage he's on, because resources vary across stages. It wouldn't be unheard of for the developers to allow him to use more resource-heavy attacks on stages that have more iron. This is clearly an Amiibo that they've put a lot of effort into, and I wouldn't put it past them. But of course, more research is needed, which will be in a part 2 video. Following the rule set I explained in the Expert Amiibo guide, this is what I recommend for your Steve Amiibo. Steve is a brilliant spiker and uses his pickaxe moves phenomenally well. He's got one of the best offstage games that I've ever seen. Forward and back air is a must. Up smash, as Lily put it, is cracked. Amiibo tend to have a hard time with hitboxes that are out for a while, and the magma block is out forever. A lot of Steve's fancier stuff begins with up tilt. While he tends to combo more with wood because of the way Amiibo handle combo spacing, it's still a great way to build damage. I didn't expect this move would be useful until I trained the Amiibo, but Steve's actually got a great KO setup. When training, be sure to stand at the ledge, facing the ledge, and spam down tilt. It's his best edge guard. Down smash is also pretty good, but Amiibo tend to recover from below the ledge, so the falling flame is a better edge guard in competition. If your Steve is somehow having a hard time KOing, you can add forward smash. It's not the best option because it's a bit slow and Steve typically gets KOs just fine, but at the iron and diamond levels, it's a good low percent killer. Steve doesn't space his fishing rod correctly. It's a long hitbox and has great reach, but he thinks it goes farther than it does, and misses it occasionally. I think his throws are pretty great, but if you're wanting to go with a more offensive Steve, you might consider avoiding his grabs. You don't need to teach Amiibo to recover. They have their own AI that controls that for you, and using recovery moves as attacks just makes them use it on stage and leaves them vulnerable. That's the long and short of how to train the Steve Amiibo, but keep your eyes peeled for part 2 and for the Steve Raid Boss video that'll be coming in a few weeks. This is an Amiibo I expect to be dissecting for a long time. We do have Pyra, Mithra, Min Min, Sephiroth, other Amiibo guides coming as well, so be sure to subscribe.